Welcome back to College Football Addiction. Locked on Big 12's Drake Seatoll with us. Drake, let's jump right into things today. Is the SEC conspiring? What's going on here? Did they not get enough love?
Unbelievable. This is great. This comes from a reporter, Scott Barley, who says, Greg Sankey on the college football playoff selection. This report says, I think there's a real scenario where the SEC is an 8-bid conference. I could full stop there and laugh for days, but I'll continue. An 8-bid conference. I've had many conversations with individual selection committee members, and we have discussed how Missouri, Vanderbilt, even Tennessee simply deserve to be in the playoffs. It's a no-brainer that the SEC has carved out at least 6 to 8 spots in the playoffs. Now, Scott goes on to say that he thinks that 6 would be where the SEC gets when the dust settles. And Drake Toll would say, what an idiot across the board. We live in a society, TJ, where no longer do you actually win the games to get in. Now you lobby your way into the March Madness basketball tournament or the college football playoff. Or I've seen baseball coaches come to the podium, sit there and say, this is my resume and how I think that we should stack up and we should make the playoff. Now it's all a lobbying game. And if it's true that Greg Sankey is in the back pocket of these people on the committee, talking to the coaches on the committee, to the reporters on the committee, to the politicians that somehow get to be on the committee, I think it's the most SEC thing ever. And the pompous nature of the way the conference acts is something that shouldn't shock anybody or surprise anybody. This is how commissioners talk. That's how you see the Narduzzi quote this week for Pitt.
Yes.
The whole thing he did, this is how coaches and commissioners talk now. Narduzzi saying that he could lose by 100 to Notre Dame, and he doesn't even care as long as they win the ACC and get into the college football playoff. That is the era we are in college sports. The transfer portal, NIL are killing this. No, people in power, commissioners, coaches, presidents, board chairs. Mack Rhodes this week, the board chair of the College Football Playoff Committee, putting his hands around the neck of a Baylor coach on the sideline, or his hands on a player and cussing him out on the sideline. None of this is good. And all boils down to people in power abusing that power, pushing that power. And TJ, the SEC wants 12 college football playoff teams so they could get it.
Well, they're going to expand to 16 next year, I think, so that they can get more teams in, because there's a very real scenario where here's my playoff take. And I've said this a couple times on the channel, so sorry if you've heard me say this, but it feels like the SEC has 4 teams pretty locked in: Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and A&M, right? Feels like the Big Ten probably has 3. Like, I think Oregon can afford a loss after beating Iowa, but let's say the Big Ten has 3. So Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon, right? Chaos scenarios could change this. Feels like Notre Dame is going to make it in. So there's number 8. The Big 12 champion is going to make it in. Let's call that Texas Tech. The ACC champion, though they likely don't deserve it, is going to make it in, no matter who that is. The group of 5 is going to get one. And then there's one spot left. I will get right back to the video, but first, let me give some love to our friends over at Sleeper. We've told you all season, you need to be on the Sleeper app, whether you're checking scores, whether you're playing the more or less game to make some money with us on the Power 2 on Wednesdays. Get over to the Sleeper app right now. Use our code CFA for a 100% match up to $100. Terms and conditions apply, so check their terms of use for more details. The Sleeper app is where you need to be as this college football season wraps up, and the Power 2 is where you need to be so that you make some money with us on Wednesdays live at noon. That spot, to me, comes down to probably 4 teams. Maybe there's a chaos scenario where another team could get in, but all of these teams probably need to win out. And those 4 teams to me are Texas, Oklahoma, Vandy, and BYU. Like that, those are the only. Now, if chaos happens and somebody loses 3 games at the top, or Georgia drops to Texas and Georgia Tech to finish the year, then I think Georgia's out and somebody else will jump them, like Texas will jump in or something. But Texas can eliminate themselves with a loss the rest of the way. Oklahoma plays in Tuscaloosa this week. That'll be tough, but if they lose it, I think they're out. Vandy has to play Tennessee at the end of the year, though Vandy could finish 10-2. And then again, if BYU was to win out, then they'd be in, and then maybe Texas Tech would be that team that slides in. Those are really the only 4 teams that I can see with 3 weeks to go that could realistically make it. And so this idea that the SEC could get, like, I think at best the SEC could get a fifth team. Like, I think Texas, if they go 10-2 with wins over Georgia and A&M to finish the year, 2 top 5 teams. Yeah, I mean, Texas should get in at that point.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think your most anti-SEC person in the world could argue that, yeah, Texas has a bad loss to Florida and a loss to the number 1 team in the country, and they should get in by beating 2 top 5 teams in the last 3 weeks. I don't think they do that, and so I don't think they do get in. But this idea that they could get more than 5 to me is insane. I mean, you'd need the ultimate chaos scenario. You need Notre Dame to drop a couple. You would need Oregon to drop to Washington and USC.
Yeah.
And hope that USC doesn't then win out, because USC would be in at 10-2. I don't really see how this is a possibility. Although I do think it speaks to your larger point of, yeah, the games have never meant less. And we are just in a scenario.
And the logos have never meant more, may I add?
Yeah,
that,
it just means more. Yeah. It really does. Like, it is because we factor, see, like with the BCS, you didn't get this. And the reason why is because it was just an algorithm, right? We didn't even know the word algorithm back then, but it was just a formulaic algorithm. And it was all plugged into computers. And the computers determined who went and who did this and who did that. And there was no bargaining, and there was no petitioning, and there was no conferences tweeting graphics of, I saw the ACC tweeted a stat graphic of Miami versus Notre Dame, but they left the teams blank and they said, which one would you pick? And it had the top 25 wins and record and everything else, strength of schedule and all this stuff. There wasn't happening back then. And so now, because you have this mix of eye test and resume, and sometimes they lean on resume, sometimes they lean on eye test, sometimes they mix and match both. Because you have that, it is politics. It is a petition by these and we can hate on Sankey all that we want. He's doing what's best for his conference. Like,
right.
If Greg Sankey was your commissioner, you would want him to do the same exact thing, whether you thought it was moral or ethical or anything else. He's not doing anything that's bad inherently. He's caping for his conference. Like, he's doing what Yormark and Phillips and Petiti should all be doing too. So I don't really blame him, but we all know that the stir that stirs the drink, or the straw that stirs the drink, the one that makes the SEC or makes ESPN the most money, make the playoff the most money, make TV ratings, do this, that, and the other, they get the biggest say. And so I think that's where people's frustration comes in. But this idea of multiple, again, the games mean less, and the way that you're able to barter and use politics and use leverage and use money, that is what the sport is at this point.
So what I'm looking at right now in the way that the committee has put together this 12-team bracket, BYU's still right there. And Utah is certainly right there for an opportunity to play for the college football playoff. And with Virginia losing to Wake Forest and being out of the equation, and Louisville losing to Cal, like, the ACC continues to shoot itself in the foot. There is a way that we see Oregon lose down the stretch. There is a way, certainly, that we see Texas lose to Georgia and Texas lose to Texas A&M, and for Alabama to win a game against Oklahoma and take them out of the playoff conversation more so than a 1-loss BYU or even a 2-loss Utah, because we know the committee really likes that Utah team. The Big 12 has an opportunity to get 2 teams, maybe 3 teams in, because of where they position themselves right now. And the idea that teams 9 through 13, 14 that are outside of the Big 12 conference are either losing or have really tough schedules coming up. There is a way the Big 12 can get multiple in, but I think the SEC has a baseline of 4, like you said. Past that, it's going to take some chaos. If our conference, if Brett Yormark can come to the podium and say, I want 8 teams, 8 Big 12 teams into the college football playoff.
Just put them all in. Here's an idea. Let's let everybody into the playoff. Let's start the playoff on Labor Day weekend. And the regular season is the playoff. And then at the very end of it, we take the 2 teams that we think are the best and we put them in the national championship. And then everybody else from there, we just set up kind of cool regional bowl games where we pit conferences against each other. And we have a 136 team playoff that lasts 15 weeks. We started on Labor Day. We ended on the week of Thanksgiving. And then we have some conference championship games. And then again, we just have one national championship and some cool bowls where guys can go and have a nice finish to their season. We'll give them gifts and stuff at the bowls, and we'll have kind of a fun matchup postseason. That I don't know if that would work. I
hate it, throw it away.
It didn't work for 100 years. There's no way it would work
it.
now. So I don't know. It felt like Mike Lee going on that rant there. So, rest in peace to the GOAT.